So as we saw in the previous video, we're getting some 404 not found errors, and let's see why that is. So I'm going to go to Eloquent JavaScript and right-click and view page source. And this first thing that's not found, image cover.png. So I'm going to look for cover.png, and here's the actual URL for that. So this is a relative URL, a URL that looks like this. somehost.com slash some path to file slash page.html. This is called an absolute URL, and it starts with a protocol, a host name, and then there's a path or directory, and then the actual page that's being served or file that's being served. So that's absolute. And then what we're seeing here is a relative URL that starts with image/cover.png. So what that means is if I was in a page like, well, let's look at the base here. That means to get an absolute URL, I add this to the protocol and host. And if I had a folder in there, like http://eloquentjavascript.net/ directory 2/ page.html. If I was on this page, I would remove page and say image/cover.png. So that's how you add a relative URL that does not start with a slash. Now the rules are a little different if it did start with a slash. If I got a relative URL that looked like this, if that was my URL and I was on the page that slash means go all the way up to here, all the way up to the host, and then add image cover.png. So for an absolute URL, I can leave it alone for now. For a relative URL without a slash, I want to strip off just that last component, just the file name, and add the URL. And for a relative URL that starts with a slash, I want to go all the way back up to the host, protocol, host, slash, and then whatever this URL is. So I'm going to have to start by taking this base apart. And this is not completely cheap, and I'm going to be doing it for every URL on the page. And so it makes sense to sort of parse it once, save the results, and then reuse them later on. So let's go ahead and start with parsing the URL. And I'm going to go ahead and add some local variables to hold my results. So I'm going to have a protocol, and that's going to be the http:// part, or http:. And then I'm going to have a directory, and that's the dir/dir2. And then I'm going to have a file, which I probably won't need. Well, let's go ahead and parse it anyhow. So that's going to be the like index.html or fetchpage.php or so on. And let's go ahead and add a function at the top called Parse Base. So what I want to do is first I'm going to find the end of the protocol. So that's going to be right here. So I'm going to look for : // and then everything up to there is going to be the protocol, and everything after that is going to be the directory, is the host name followed by the directory followed by the file name. So position is equal to base.indexof : //. And this will return the position, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or if it's not found in the URL, it will return -1. And I have to look for this because there are different protocols. Some of them have HTTPS and FTP and all sorts of things. So that gives me the position. And then to get the protocol, let's go ahead and say I have this here as my URL. So URL.substring starting at 0 and going up to URL.indexOf : //. So that gives me the protocol. So protocol is equal to base.subster from 0 up to position. And then the next thing I need is going to be the host name. And that's going to be everything after that / up to the next slash or the end of the URL. So let's first start by cutting out everything after the position. And that's going to look like this. So URL.subster starting with URL.indexOf : //. That will give me everything from here on. And then I want to add 3 to the position. So that's the remainder after the protocol. So let's go ahead and say var remainder, and let's move this in here. So position is that. Remainder is equal to base.subster position plus 3. Then I want to find the slash. And if there is a slash, the host is everything up till there. If there's no slash, then I have something like so, and the whole thing is the host. So let's say /pos is remainder index of /. And then if it didn't find a slash, /pos is going to be -1. So if /pos equal -1, host name is remainder, directory is empty, file is empty. Else, host name is equal to remainder.substring from 0 up to /pos, and then remainder is remainder.subster from /pos plus 1. So that's everything after the slash. So hostname is everything up to the slash, and the remainder is now everything after the slash. So then I want to do the same thing again, find another slash. And either I have something like this, in which case the directory is empty, but I have a file, and I'm not going to find a slash, or it's going to look like this, in which case everything up to that last slash is the directory, and then everything after the last slash is the file name. So the next thing we want to do is set /pos equal to remainder.last index of slash. So that's going to be the last slash, and I'm starting after the first slash. So if /pos == -1, that means directory is empty and file is remainder. Otherwise, if I did find a slash, then directory is remainder dot subster, everything from the start up to /pos, and file is everything after /pos. And that should be it. So when I get here, I'm going to console.log. Let's go protocol. Protocol : comma. Hostname : comma, hostname. Directory : directory. And file : file. And then I want to test this. So what I'm going to do is copy it and paste this in here. So it's not inside the closure and I can call it directly. So let's try parse base. Oh, and then we want to set base to different things. So let's say base is equal to http://somedomain.com/some path to file /page.html, and then parse base. And so I have a problem. Let's see where. Oh, that should be remainder dot subster of /pos +1. Oh, and let me copy and paste that again. And we'll set base to that. And let's try parse base. Okay, so protocol http somedomain.com, some path to file, page.html. So that was the first one. Now let's try a base that has an empty directory. And protocol http hostname directory is empty, and then page.html. And now let's try one without a page. So protocol and hostname, empty directory, empty file, and without the slash. And so that's should be all the cases, because the base is always going to be an absolute URL, or else I couldn't fetch it from PHP.